Hey, I'm Juan David Garzon, and in this video I'll be talking about youth and community songwriting and why it is, in my opinion, a great tool in any community music setting. I'm gonna be also reflecting about the questions that I asked myself along my journey developing my approach to community songwriting, and hopefully I'll leave you with more questions than you have now. At the end, I'll also going to be discussing my approach itself. But let's start now with some infos about me. I'm saying hello from Utrecht in the Netherlands. From here, I move and I work with institutions, organizations, communities, and youth groups all over Europe. And I advise organizations and universities in Latin America, especially in Colombia, which is where I was born, and I focus all my energy working on projects aimed at peacemaking and solidarity, inclusion, diversity, democracy and participation, human rights, inclusive music pedagogics, youth leadership, and community building. I basically use the power of music and play to motivate communities to develop and individuals to learn and grow. If you ask me what's the most important thing that I consider in my work, I would definitely say that it's about creating the conditions necessary to allow people to playfully experiment and expand the radius of their creativity. And really, this allows individuals and communities to start collectively moving towards new horizons, towards new ideas. And then community songwriting fits perfectly in my work because it contains really those elements. Okay, so now let's get into matter. Why songwriting? Expressing in musical ways has been definitely my life, and I know the power that music has to allow individuals to express without words. I really had it myself. As a youngster, I had a really tough time in expressing my emotions in words. And that's actually how I got into music. I really, through heavy metal, distorted bass playing. So the head banging playing was more my way of expressing my emotions. But I know that also with music, you can express yourself with words and lyrics, concrete or abstract. And because it has both elements, the interesting thing about songwriting is that everyone has an access point to make music, to be creative. And that's why I make sure that I help everyone in my workshops to find out which one is their way to get involved in the creative process. That leads, of course, to teamwork and how it is to work with people that you maybe don't know. And this is, how is it to work with something where everyone has an emotional connection and where everyone is pretty new at, and with people that you don't know? That's really giving a little bit of a push to people to get outside of their comfort zone. So it's definitely a challenge. That means that your attitude is, as a facilitator, is fundamental. You should transmit an attitude of possibility, an attitude of fun, of easiness, to make it an enjoyable group activity. And by the way, I'm also all the time scanning the group to recognize when people need a break, because that makes the whole difference at maintaining the activity enjoyable, to really focus on the tension wave in the group. Another aspect that I love is the sense of ownership. Having something that belongs to you and to the rest of the group is something that will create a core memory. It involves the collective and individual creativity, a special moment, a setting, a bunch of people that are emotionally engaged in the activity, and most importantly, there's something that is being created that didn't exist before. And that has such an impact, co-creating something that is yours. So I've had youngsters and also adults that after years, when we meet again, they can recreate the whole scenario. They know the complete lyrics, they know all melodies, and still remember what was the setting and everyone involved. And this core memory you can really take anywhere with you, anywhere. And by the way, I love to record old songs and create kind of like a production, but you know, that core memory will be always there. It will be in your memory if it's really done with the heart and it's an authentic thing. So one of the kids from one of my workshops once told me that he used to sing our song when things were not so good in his life. And this really confirmed to me that you can bring emotions and memories back when you really need them. Another thing that I really love when I'm working with groups is jamming. And when I work with my groups and in community songwriting, I do this every time. That way I can combine the more experimental, open, kind of flexible, improvisational elements with the more down-to-earth and concrete aspects of creating song structures and lyrics. And you know, there's always people in the group that need either of those elements to feel in their game. So I make sure that I'm letting people know that there's going to be enough time for both of these moments. And this is how I pay attention to the process while they are paying attention to the result. And when we talk about, there's like this big discussion about process versus result. And we can talk about it for hours. But I'm always putting lots of attention to the process. But also at the same time, when I'm doing songwriting, I work really meticulously so that everyone can go home with something very concrete and very artistic. I always get these questions from my young participants like, so Juan, when is it going to be mixed? When is it going to be ready? Or when are we going to be able to publish it or present it to the world? So that kind of expectation is something super beautiful. And it's that balance between process versus result or product. I also use community songwriting to enable youngsters to step into their leadership. So I always motivate my groups to find a meaningful message to say. And that allows them to be honest and authentic and really to take responsibility. And when I notice that someone is stepping into that zone, I start sharing my leadership so that they can start owning not only the result, but also the process. And youth leadership is, my life mission. So I could do a whole video about this, but I'll make sure to answer any questions that you have at the Community Music Netzwerk Salon, the workshop that I'm going to be giving on the 26th of January of 2023 this year. But now let's talk about an important aspect or topic that I often think about, and what are those limiting beliefs that get into the way of creativity. Well, first of all, we have this association of songwriting as this action that you should not dare to try if you're not this person that has the tools to write songs and the music theory knowledge, and that can play an instrument very well or sing. And most of all, you should never dare to write a song if you're not a creative person. So when I say that we're gonna make a song, I can sense that for some, the alarms are already ringing for them, saying that we're going to make music and play instruments or improvise or create a song can be super intimidating. So wording is very important there, which words you use to communicate what you are about to do. So the word music instrument means for many a very expensive or delicate instrument that I should not touch. Making music is for the trained. Improvising is for someone who spent countless hours practicing. And sadly, in many of my groups, I hear people who at the beginning refer to themselves as uncreative people. That's super sad. So, how do I deal with all those limiting beliefs? If you're watching this video, you know that every human has a creative capability and has the ability of expressing musically, but many people really first need the right setting to start believing it. So I really pay attention to the room and the elements, like the environment, but I also pay attention to my attitude and my playfulness and, my vibe and the vibe that I start irradiating in the group. Then I follow with starting to get loose with your body, to start to get in contact with your body, because when we enter sometimes the room, we are all here and not much here. So I start with games to get people moving, to move from their rationality to their body. It's really social play. Playing is one of the most powerful ways of learning, and that takes down all that fear of making mistakes, because when we're playing, we're always able to try again, and we're able to improvise or to be someone else. And so then I move to making music or singing without even noticing it. Like, think about when you're under the shower and all of a sudden you realize that you're singing. And it doesn't matter how good a singer you are. It was so natural, it was spontaneous, you were flowing. And that kind of sensation is what I like to create before I start any songwriting activity. And when I got already into this flow of sounding together, I like to make it clear to them that we will gather and master the tools necessary to be able to write a song, because that way you give people kind of like the necessary context. It brings reassurance and safety that they will be able to accomplish it, and that you know what you're doing, that you know the tools and you're going to transmit the tools to them. So then I move to feeling comfortable with making music with instruments. I do many different activities to increase their level of confidence and to find kind of like the perfect instrument or type of instrument to portray an aspect of your personality, of their personality, to really connect with an instrument. And at the end of the workshops, I often get the comment like, "Juan, can I keep my instrument? Can I take it home?" And that's why I also love to do DIY instruments so that the participants can take them home. Next, it comes to the harmonic tools and song structure. So how do we really create a balanced song? So I've come up with activities and games to help participants understand this balance between tension and resolution, the two forces that are present in music. So we're off to experiment with what type of sounds create tension and what other types create or release that tension. So only with that, you already start finding balance and structure, and you start to find the tools to give motion to that song. And that leads, of course, to melodic construction. So how you build the melody and how it has a natural flow based on that tension and relaxation. And then after all those kind of like tools are gathered and practiced, then it comes the time to find our core. And this is how I like to call this ideation process. What's our shared message? What is the deepest and more fundamental concept that we want to bring out? I like to take enough time for this activity. Usually people are on the floor with flip chart paper and markers, and it's messy. It's just creative. And normally I make a big drawing referring to our context. So if it's one of my climate engagement workshops, it has to do with planet Earth, or a concept that really unites us, in which we can go really deep and find out what is our heart. And that's how I facilitate the process of finding this main message, the chorus. And from there, when you have that main message, it's easier to start thinking about verses and other choruses, or the bridge, or whatever it comes. So I really make sure to take the time of finding a group, like what the group wants to bring out. And that particular moment, what is important message? What's the important message that needs to be expressed with the song? And then it starts with writing the text. And I really like to do it collectively. Sometimes it requires smaller groups, but basically I help them to establish a culture of trial and error. I really encourage celebrating mistakes. And since already we are warmed up with lots of activities and games where we don't think about mistakes as the big deal, but more about trying again and give it another go, then during the songwriting, we'll have kind of like a much more easygoing attitude about different opinions, or not sounding like you want it to sound, but then you have kind of like much more of a tolerance between people. So how can songwriting be helpful to create a group identity? And I'm gonna just give you an example. A subject that I really enjoy working with youngsters is climate engagement. I said it before. I lead a youth leadership project that involves being creative in nature and with nature. And it's kind of like a 5-day retreat in nature. And at the end, it's not the goal of the project, but it's a goal for us. It is to write a song, or to write our song. So last year we had a nice mixed group of teenagers, and some of them were coming from Afghanistan, and others, let's say, with diverse cultural backgrounds. So throughout the songwriting process, we started having so many ideas in different languages and with different perceptions of nature. But the group decided that they needed those different words in different languages, because there was no way of explaining concepts like the feeling that they had experiencing nature together. So we had kind of like those hidden messages that remained for us to understand, and that was super powerful. There was this word that gave title to the song, and it's Yekishoran. It's a Persian word that means something like becoming one. And actually, no other language can fully express the sentiment behind the word. So it stayed as the core, and so deeply imprinted in our hearts, we really became one. And that word and that core really helped us to identify as powerful messengers for planet Earth. Messengers that would help others to become one with their environment. So that was really an identity element that we had there. There's also the misconception about songwriting, which is that it's made by one person. But no, you can really do it collectively. And this is an excellent opportunity to work on inclusion and equality. My style is to find out really how everyone ticks. Is that person more into the instrument playing, or more into writing the text, or more about the groove? I will have people that are not even interested in any of that, but more about dancing. So what's the move for our song? I will always find people or kids that are more involved in the visuals, so making drawings. I even had someone who created costumes and special makeup and effects. So also it's more, some are more about, a possible video clip or photos. So I focus on creating a whole vibe around the song. Not just the music and the lyrics, but a whole atmosphere. So I really like to start checking out with the group to see who is who and what is their style. Then next, and this is super important for me, I will connect with everyone. I will make sure that I have a special time with every single person in the group. I will grab my bass, or I'm gonna be playing my drum, and I'm gonna go and check out how I can groove with every single person. At the beginning, it's kind of like a jam session to find out the vibe of the song, but I will go and start kind of moving around the group to groove, because sometimes there's people who have a difficult time kind of stepping into their creativity or allowing themselves to sound. So I'll make sure that everyone understands that observing is fundamental in the creative process. So observing from a little bit of a distance is totally fine. And slowly, I will start to come to people, even if they're in their observant role, so that they can start jamming, and I help them keep being curious. So I make sure that everyone feels included and treated with an equal level of attention. And after this, I'll start to create connections between the different characters in the group. So I will know which people can start forming microgroups. And I will do that all while music is sounding. So I'll never stop the music, because it's, for me, at the beginning, it's about creating the vibe, creating the groove. What type of song should it be? And we're about repeating and getting that groove going. So it's about that repetition over and over until the moment that it sounds kind of like effortless. So it can be really simple, but it should be irresistible not to move to the groove. It's like putting roots in the floor, and this starts loosening up people, and really it all depends on your way of doing it. It's about how you connect with everyone in the group and how you spark connections within the group. I'll let the music do it while we're jamming. Something very simple, but when you allow sufficient time, music will spark all those connections together with your assertiveness. So my advice to you is, don't rush it at this moment, at this point. I guess at this point you have tons of questions, like, is one session of 1.5 hours enough to do all that? Or Juan, do you have any specific story about someone who felt excluded or was excluded, and how did you handle it? Or what are other benefits of community songwriting? Or what other tools or instrumentation do you use to get a harmonic basis running when participants don't have any experience in music making? Or how does one of those games look like? Or what extra musical elements you use in your songwriting facilitation? And I can tell you that I love to bring improv theater and painting into the mix. Or can you even do it online? So if you have all those questions or even more, I'll try to answer all of them at the workshop I've been invited to give at the Community Music Netzwerk online salon on the 26th of January. So make sure to enroll. Also go and check out my website, which is probably somewhere in the description. And yeah, and I see you there. I hope I see you there. And if not, until next time. Ciao, ciao.